Can everybody, I'm kind of mic'd up, but actually I can hear the mic now. It's good. Right. Thank you for coming, and apologies to those of you that were drawn away from the Varsity Boys basketball game or the Varsity Boys hockey game. And thank you for coming to this. I think it's an indication there's a lot going on at Lake Forest Academy in a given evening. What I'm just going to do, I'll try and keep my remarks relatively brief, and then we can have some questions if you want. There's a couple of nice little drawings here that I will call your attention to. If you remember the last couple of times, those of you that are here, when I presented to the Parents Association group last year and earlier on this year, obviously very much focused on the strategic plan that has been passed by the school, endorsed by the Board of Trustees, which really guides us through. We're in a great position currently as a school because I think we've made tremendous progress over the last decade or so, guided by our strategic plan of 03 and then our second one in 08, and now we have our strategic plan developing local citizens for 2014. And you are at a school that you have a head of school that really likes strategic plans. I think it helps guide the institution, it keeps everybody on focus, and it means that I think all of us understand what we're trying to do in the school improvement, and we can actually get down into some detail and everybody agree about how we're going to do it. We're obviously also coming off the successful campaign for Lake Forest Academy. We raised almost $70 million over the previous 10 years between kind of 05 and 2014, which really transformed the campus. We raised some money for endowment, though, as the strategic plan is identified, that's an area where we need to continue to really put some emphasis on raising the endowment of the school. But we really were, incredibly successful due to the generosity of our parents and our alumni in terms of raising funds, particularly to transform the school facilities. I'm trying to think who was here, I think 2003. Put your hand up if you were a member of this community in 2003. Ruth, you were a member of the community in 2003. Ruth was the second person I hired at this school, correct?
Yeah.
Sarah Hill was the first. Sorry, but Sarah was important. But Ruth, though, what facilities did we have in 2003?
Almost Reed and Corbin and just a gym with no weight room. And
Gore Gymnasium, which anybody would have visited at that time, you would have known during kind of Gore Gymnasium in the locker room by the state of it, which went back to the 1950s. It really hasn't been changed much. The point being is, we've been able to transform the school, and I thank everybody here and the Parents Association as a whole for all your help in making that happen. We've been guided over this time, and we continue to be guided by the 4 pillars of our mission. I think we're kind of a neat school in that we have this kind of quite tight mission statement in many ways with our 4 pillars, which everybody knows. Correct?
Scholarship, citizenship, character, and responsibility.
Thank you. Table effort over there. Very clear, but if you ask the students, incredibly clear now in terms of what are the 4 pillars, in terms of what we're striving to get excellence in. And that's really helped us, I think, again, focus where we are. Of interest, I'm going to read a quote. We recently had the ISACS, the Independent Schools Association in the Central States, who accredit Lake Forest Academy as a school. As an independent school, you have to be accredited by the organization. Now it's ISACS. As it so happens, I actually, up until now, we only had a draft of the report. I actually received the final report today in my email. It didn't change from the draft, but apparently now it's official. But one of the quotes in the ISACS report, this is a group of educators led by Scott Mooney, who's the head at the Hawkins School in Cleveland. They come in and look at the school, and they basically what they're looking at is, do we do as a school what we say we do? So are we mission driven? Are we doing what we say? So this is kind of part of their visiting team report, which I think is a great quote. Our visiting team members saw students with passion, energy, and understanding of our shared humanity. Students who are deeply proud of the global pluralism of their LFA community. We saw thoughtful, kind, and passionate adults who are selflessly dedicated to helping their students' academic progress and equally dedicated to helping them grow into kind, empathetic people. I mean, that's a pretty nice statement to get from the visiting team, given that's what we're trying to do. So, we're at a time where I think the school is, one of the reasons I think you're here, your sons and daughters are at the school. We're a school that's doing, I think, a very good job in terms of delivering on the mission and continuing to improve. And that kind of brings us to this most recent strategic plan. I'm just going to mention a few of the initiatives and then open it to questions. If you remember, I think it was about a year ago, I had you in tables doing some little activities. Remember that? Those of you here, who was here? Who was here a year ago? I think little sticky notes and things like that you were doing. And we had to come up with kind of LFA's promise. Well, where we came up with LFA's promise was LFA develops global citizens through unique educational experiences within a diverse and caring community. I think a pretty neat promise of what we're trying to do. And we're doing that within this promise to you, and to, most importantly, to your sons and daughters, of continued improvement. We're trying to continue to improve. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We've done an awful lot in the last decade plus, but those of you who know me, we're going to drive it. So the strategic plan laid out 4 kind of fundamental initiatives that we're going to be focusing on over this next 3 to 5 years in order to continue to improve the school. There's an educational experience initiative, particularly looking at curriculum, students' experiences here, some longitudinal studies of the outcomes, how we kind of measuring how we transform maybe students as they go through and then into college. A multicultural initiative, again focusing on, are we doing what we say we're doing in terms of educating students for a multicultural society as they go out. Making sure that the applicant pool that we're looking at in admissions is as diverse and as deep, both domestically and internationally as we possibly can. And maybe most importantly in that initiative is making sure that we're recruiting into the applicant pool for faculty and staff a diverse group of applicants. Probably an area which we've struggled as a school. Lake Forest is not the most sort of diverse community in the world. Lake Forest Academy is. But it's hard to attract perhaps faculty and staff to us. It's there. The third broad initiative is a branding and marketing initiative, which really comes to a lot of people still don't know maybe how good Lake Forest Academy is out there. Maybe, I think education in the local community has risen, but a little bit further afield, who knows us, even internationally. Very well known in parts of Shanghai, but not necessarily in other parts of the world. It is pretty astounding. I might have told you the story before, but I could be walking down the street in Shanghai with my Lake Forest Academy staff with the seal, and somebody would come up to me and say, "Dr. Strudwick, who's not a current parent, but it's this, we're very well known." We need to sort of change that. But also on the marketing branding side of this notion of getting our message to people, we need to continue to connect and reconnect with our alumni. I think most of you obviously know about your own colleges and perhaps your own private schools, high schools. Endowment tends to come from, and the growth of endowment comes from the support of the alumni base. We need to ensure that we are doing a great job of connecting with our alumni in a meaningful way to allow them to support the school however they see fit, but over the course of time. Because that's what's going to be kind of the rock, the solid base for this institution going into the next 158 years. 58 years old. And the fourth broad initiative is financial strength. And that is related to the endowment, There's also this commitment to using every dollar wisely. You recently got a tuition re-enrollment thing, right? And the tuition is more than it was last year, correct? I wish we didn't have to continue to increase tuition, honestly. But I've got to pay I've got to pay teachers a real increase and all those sorts of things. But one of our struggles in terms of as a school compared to other schools recruiting teachers is, believe it or not, our tuitions are considerably lower than our peer schools, say, in the East Coast. And that's what we're recruiting our teachers against, for other prep schools. So we've got to, in order to be as competitive as we can in that area, we've got to use every dollar as wisely as we can. We've also got to seek out ancillary income. That's the wedding business, the ice rink rental, things like that. Kind of meaningful ways. That really helps us. Summer session. Not to compromise the mission of the school, but how can we bring in other revenues to help the tuition and gifts, etc. Again, partly, of course, because we have a low endowment. If you have a high endowment, it can be like Harvard, you have to charge tuition if you don't want to. Do they still charge tuition at Harvard? Don't need to. Unfortunately, we do. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. So those are the 4 broad initiatives, but coming out of that, and coming out of the ISACS report, the accreditation report, I have a list here of 17 kind of plans and projects that are kind of driving my life over this next 3 to 5 years. This is interesting. I mean, I've distilled it into kind of 17 things, most of which I want to delegate to somebody else, to be honest. I tried. One is a branding project, which we're currently involved in, which Kathy Morrison, who's here, is leading as Dean of Communications. And that is, we hired an outside firm, Canteen Communications. Canteen, they're a good firm. I don't provide canteen food, but they're a very good firm, and we're delighted to be working with them. And so over this next couple of months, and some of you, and some of your peers and the parents, so in the Parents Association, will be interviewed as part of this as we try and, as they try to develop the LFA brand and some of our language for how we present Lake Forest Academy in a true and meaningful way. We're also we will be, and some of you will be delighted by this, we will be moving to a new website. We're going to actually move away from Whipple Hill, which is the current vendor for the website, and move to Final Site, which is a competitive vendor, which we feel is right, we made that decision, right, Kathy?
We did.
Yeah, we did, good. The Dean's Council made that decision recently. We feel it's going to provide a much better product for our parents, for our students, for our faculty and staff, and for people wanting to get to know us. That's one of the other ones. There's some sort of stuff that I've got to deal with in terms of communications internally, this commitment to hiring and supporting diverse and quality faculty and staff. I've got to look at workload for the faculty. I don't know, how many of you have ever worked in a prep school? Apart from those who are working at LFA. Any of you? It's a weird environment to work in, trust me. Having been on maybe the other side of this, being one of the guys in the trenches who was coaching 2 seasons and in a dormitory and on duty and teaching and being on committees and being told, please come to this alumni event because we want you to talk about economics and blah, blah, blah. And I have to say, when I was that at Andover, I used to think, oh my God, I'm working so hard. That person over there is not doing anything. Well, look at that. Look at those administrators. What do they do? Sit in their office and what's the head of school do? And so it's been interesting, of course, them becoming the head of school. Yeah, that was kind of easier when I was doing all those other things. But what it creates is, one, you have a great family, community environment. But like any family, there tends to be some tensions that come along with it. And one of the things we need to do is to make sure our family is really intact and everybody feels valued. So that's something that is on my shoulders to make sure all of our faculty faculty and staff, feel truly valued. I'm going to do that. The technology, we obviously have made major improvements. One of the things we are committed to is making sure all of our faculty recognize what they can do with the technology we have Some are better than others. I would admit that I'm still trying to deal with Google Chrome and these things. I'm getting better at it. But again, a commitment to it. We're going to have this improvement. Let's make sure we're as efficient as we possibly can with it. We're going to try and develop this kind of educational index and kind of outcome measure. We're interested in trying to really look at, this is what we say we're going to do as a school, to you guys as parents and to the students, most importantly. Well, are we truly doing that? Well, how do we measure it? Very hard to measure education outcomes, but we want to look at that strategically to make sure that we're doing what we say we're doing. If not, let's make sure we do. This is on the academic side and on the non-academic side. Reviewing the curriculum I talked about, particularly in the context of developing global citizens. I'm working currently with an alum to try and come up with, perhaps endowment to support sort of this global curriculum, global leadership for our students. That's an important part of what we provide for all of our students going forward. So again, something which I hope to be able to make some sort of announcement in the next year or so. I'll come back down to number 12, you'll be pleased to know. Number 12 I'll come back to last. The alumni, Susan and her team of external relations. We have parents in the room, though we do have any alums? No alum parents? But I mean, another parent who is an alum. I'm just thinking our alums have been incredibly supported during the campaign. A lot of you saw Jim Cowett last year if you were at the gala, an alum who's been incredibly supported. A lot of other alums. But one of the things we need to do is to get more of our alums engaged and involved, particularly younger alums. So anything you can do, parents and seniors, to remind you, support the school, appreciate it. We need to do that. Looking at planned giving, it's another initiative to raise endowment, particularly from alums. It's important for us. As I said, looking at how we can be most efficient in how we spend dollars. And part of the work that needs to be done as a school, which was recognized or highlighted by the ISACS report, is that we've done a great job. We haven't necessarily documented or done institutional research as a school, compared ourselves perhaps to schools out east, out west, particularly boarding days, to see how we're actually doing comparatively. I think we're doing awesomely well, but let's look and do some institutional research to see exactly where we are, and if there's some areas we're not doing, let's pay some attention now. And then the last sort of initiative is the one that's kind of presented in the slides here, in the boards, and that is the one physical facility that came out of the strategic plan was a call for basically a student union. Programmatically, to provide an opportunity for students to gather, both in terms of academically, during the day and in the evening, particularly for boarding students, but also providing a new cafeteria space. A couple of reasons for it. Obviously, the school has grown in this last decade. I think when I arrived, we were about just over 300. We're now 435. So we have grown. We did improve Hutchinson Commons, but it's still it's tight. But more importantly, it's just, okay, let's put something in. Grace, I'm going to remove I'm being videoed tonight, so it's going to get streamed. If you can see, the idea is to put this new building. That's the current student centre in Hutch. Here's the field hockey field, Crown here, Ferry Hall, Atlas. Yep. Yes. And that, the bright blue is the new student centre. The idea is right in the centre of campus is putting this new student union. So programmatically, it came out of the strategic plan is was really to put a kind of cornerstone for all students to be right in the center. There's the dormitories, here's the academics, here's the athletics, all day long. Just like a college, here's the student union, provides places for study, you can eat, the snack bar will be open, etc., etc. Great project, I'll let you look at, you can come up after and see some of the visuals. Very much in the architectural style of the science building. And so that is the one physical plant kind of piece that came out of the strategic plan. I'll be totally transparent, I am currently raising funds for this. Someone's going to ask me, right? I'm raising funds for this. And we've been pretty successful to date. And I've got some significant commitments. It's about a $9 million project, and we're about approximately halfway to that $9 million. I'm going to be having a number of conversations with various people, including some alums in Florida next week, in terms of asking for some support. And we're hopeful, to be honest, that we might be able to go ahead and put a shovel in the ground by the end of the academic year. The board, in their wisdom, fairly conservative. We're not going to go unless we're committed, we know how to funds, but it's an exciting project. We hope to open it in August of 2016. It's the working plan. And kind of makes that capstone of the building and for the campus. So if anybody would like to talk to me, don't need to talk to me afterwards, just send me an email saying, hey, John, love that, love to chat to you about it, feel free. That's kind of, that's where we are as a school. Great place, good plans, lots of different areas going forward. There's a couple of other things I'll mention kind of at the end, but it's now a chance for any questions or comments or thoughts.
So with the new student union, will the students have access to the grass? I mean, it just seems like that should be a big plot.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and
Can you repeat the question, John?
the question is will the students have access to the grass and the quad and everything? And the idea is yes. If you come up and have a look, you'll see that the building is kind of raised up a little bit with a grass, sort of whatever you call it, slope.
So field hockey is still going to be there? That's the
Oh, field hockey, yeah, field hockey will still be there, yeah. It doesn't actually go, it doesn't go into the field hockey
It
field.
needs to be a piece of grass.
Yeah. In fact, you'll have, field hockey will have fans on this bank cheering away, drinking their cups of coffee and sort of.
And traditionally,
Yeah. But the idea is yes. And to be honest, one of the points is to try and, I think, maybe make that quad a little less expansive than it currently is, to make that even more of a kind of a collegiate feel, if you will. Good question. Other thoughts on anything strategically? I'll even take questions about tuition. I'll take questions about anything.
So, you talked about tracking the 50 hours. Something how you would do that?
John, we can't hear the question. Would you mind repeating?
It was, the question was, talking about tracking and what was it?
KPIs, your performance.
Yeah, basically performance index, how we're going to do that. Work in progress. One thing we have done is we recognize that, I'm happy to sort of do some of this sort of work, I like it, but time is difficult. So we have contracted with an educational research group who do colleges and prep schools to do institutional research. We have no department here, don't have it, who have done some of this work, and so they're going to be working with us, one, to look at the different metrics that will become part of it. Obviously, number of kids taking certain courses, GPA scores on certain tests, and the like is one part, and obviously college placement, scholarships, etc., 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 going through. On the non-academic side, we will be doing the National Association of Independent Schools AIM, which is the assessment of inclusivity and multiculturalism, which is a national banked, and we can compare ourselves to any school in the country. We'll be doing that annually over the next 3 years, probably starting next year, because they haven't got the new test out yet. But things like that, which will all then feed into that overall, this is how we're doing it. It will indicate, I think, if there are some areas of weakness, so that we can pay attention to those. But also, I hope it's also going to show some areas of great strength, which I think will then part of the communications in order to, this is who LFA is and this is what we do.
So what's being done to increase LFA's visibility outside of Shanghai?
The admissions office, part of their charge in the strategic plan is to increase, basically to broaden and deepen the applicant pool, both internationally as well as domestically. And that means more visits or activities as well as communication materials to certain markets outside of our well-established ones. On the domestic side this year, we've travelled far more to some of the Midwest cities, different Midwest cities, to get LFA's name out. Obviously, the branding project that Kathy's in charge of is going to help us take that even further. On the international side, some travel both to Western Europe, Turkey, Brazil, other parts South and Central America this year, more so than we've done in the past. So again, trying to expand the number of places we're going to face-to-face, working with both families, particularly where we've got an alum or a connection, as well as consultants. So we're being, I would say, more aggressive about getting the Lake Forest Academy name out there to prospective students, more markets.
So with these initiatives, do you foresee that you're going to expand the student population, or are you going to try to, instead of it being 50 or 55, 45 split between quarters and day students, is there a goal to increase the boarding students? I don't know if you have more beds you can fill at this stage.
It's a great question, and one that I think the Board of Trustees wrestle with. They've asked me, John, what do you... I love this 435 number. Why 435? I've told you the Russian cattle farmer story.
No.
Tell us, John.
The Russian cattle farmer story. You should only have a school the size of the number of cattle that the Russian farmer can remember each and every name of. And apparently that number is... I have no idea. But that's, it's a good story, right? I mean, you get the notion. You've got to be careful getting too big. The advantage of the size for us, the move from 300 to where we are now, there's a revenue piece, fine, in terms of cost efficiency, in terms of fixed costs, and the like. But it's also allowed us to expand our program. If you don't have the numbers of students, you can't have some of the electives because you just don't have the number of students to take those classes. And when I arrived, there were classes, I remember my first year, I was told, oh, we can't offer BC calculus. There was only 4 students enrolled. I'm coming from Andover. My wife is a BC calculus teacher. Can't teach BC calc because there's only 4 kids. I said, no, we're going to teach BC calc. And next year we're going to have 6 or 7. You've got to make some of those decisions, but it makes you think, right? If because of the numbers, you're not going to be offering some electives you need to be offering, you've got to think about it. Obviously, from a orchestra, choir, sports, etc., you want to have enough students in order to offer the programs you want. So that's been a big advantage, but there's a limit. And if we are, as I think we are, as a school, we're one of the very best in the country, the small kind of boarding day school. You don't want to get to a point where students are falling through the cracks. So you've got to be very careful moving into that bigger range. Again, maybe part of my own experience, at a bigger school, where students fell through the cracks.
So how do we compare LFA as far as the boarder, day student, percentages compared to some of the schools that you compare yourself to?
We're rare. It's rare that you're 50-50. But we're a unique school in many ways. We're a unique school being kind of this only prep school model in the North Shanghai. in the Chicagoland area. So we don't have kind of the competing boarding schools sort of nearby. They're a bit further afield. A school like Lucas Chaffee, which kind of drifted towards 50-50 a few years back, and then they built a dorm to make sure they were 60-40, or 57, something or other. Milton Academy in Boston is another one that's pretty heavy, a lot of day. Middlesex School in Concord and Concord Academy, both quite heavily day, but still a little bit more boarding day. Again, partly because of the communities where they're nearby. It's very kind of the affluent suburbs of Boston. We find ourselves in a great situation. We're near O'Hare, which is to our advantage. But we're in the North Shore of Chicago, where there is no school like us. Right? Very attractive to day families, because we provide an educational model which is very different from anything else you receive. It's not like a Latin or a Parker or a North Shore Country Day. And it's not like a New Trier or a Lake Forest High School or a Stevenson. All very, very good schools. We're different from that. So we're very attractive, but we're also attractive to the both domestic and international borders, particularly international, because I mean the program we've developed. So that we've, it's kind of just 50-50. We're getting good numbers of applicants in both groups, great kids. And so despite the fact that we're a little bit unique in being 50-50, it seems to work. And as long as it continues to work and we see the advantages of it, I don't think there's any reason to change.
John?
I see branding as two sides of the coin. One side, you want to increase the brand to increase your ability to bring in the best students that you can from all around the world to continue to focus on multiculturalism we're trying to build here. The other side of the coin, I wonder, is how do you do branding for purposes of how college admissions committees look at this school and the types of kids that they want to bring to their universities?
That's again
And how do we stand right now versus our peers?
Okay, great question. First part, some of the people that we will be interviewing, or the consultants will be interviewing, are some of the college reps who come to, from colleges and universities who come to LFA, but they also go to schools around the country. So they're going to be providing information for the consultants as to, well, how is LFA perceived currently? Anecdotally, I think we're perceived very well. Certainly there's been a trajectory, an upward trajectory in terms of LFA's, how well LFA is known by the modern college admissions person, and the esteem to which our students are held. Bottom line though is, the college is going to be looking at rigor of program, AP scores, as much as sometimes I get testing scores, teacher recommendations, what students are doing, that whole overall package. I would say currently LFA is looked upon as a school that really produces outstanding young men and women that every college campus would like to have on their campus. So I think we have an advantage currently in that an LFA graduate is seen as somebody who is more pluralistic, more adept at dealing with some of the issues they might be dealing with on college campuses, compared to particularly young men and women who are coming out of a maybe more homogeneous public school. Very difficult, all of this stuff, and it's very hard, but a prep school is a prep school. You're prepping for college, not just in the classroom, but in kind of all of the things we do in terms of the interactions. One of the things that LFA students, like most prep school kids, not just LFA, I think we do a good job, is they're not afraid to go, office hours, they're not afraid to go to the teacher and ask for extra help. Right. We encourage them, you encourage them. Hey, go and see your teachers. They're there at breakfast, why don't you see them? But they also learn to do that. So when they go to college, they're not afraid. A lot of the students who are particularly coming out of the public school sector, unfortunately, they haven't had that relationship. They've had, their teachers leaving at 3:15, driving down the driveway. It's different relationship. Whereas here, more of a family. So, and certainly at the moment, obviously our college placement the last few years have been very strong. Do we want it to get even stronger? Sure. But I'm very pleased with where we are on that side of things. An interesting, just a side point a little bit is, Lake Forest Academy was an incredibly well-known prep school nationally back in the 1930s and 40s, 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe 50s and 60s. Kind of changed a little bit. So part of the branding is to get us, making sure everybody understands who we are. Sarah?
John, my question is regarding the student union plans. You mentioned you referenced the ice hockey rink and bed and rentals. Are there opportunities with this new facility to bring in or space being used for additional income purposes?
Okay. The question, if you didn't hear down there, is are there any income opportunities with the student union building in terms of outside rentals? We're not looking at it in that way. We see this as a student union that's really going to be focused on student life 24/7. Maybe in the summer it would probably allow us to maybe offer slightly more expansive, we might be able to attract some different summer camps to the campus, because this would be a great facility for a summer camp to operate out of, and that might attract something there. But during the school year, this is my view, and I think it is the view, that this is going to be very student-centric. And one thing I should have mentioned that is kind of relevant, the current hutch in student union, which is the old Keller Chapel, which used to be the auditorium before Cressy, then became a weight room and sort of fitness room, and then came back to a student centre. Obviously, if we build a new student centre, that space becomes available. And our intent is, particularly that upper area, downstairs would probably be offices, which we need, but upstairs would be where we would put music practice. Currently, the orchestra is practicing in the lobby of Cressy because of its size. This would allow us to have in that area, and with some actually practice rooms around, that's where we could put the orchestra, which choir, the music practice area, and that would be their spot. And of course, it's a chapel, the sound is very good already. It wouldn't take a great deal of transition. But that's an important one, because it's a nice positive externality from this whole kind of project that we can get out of this.
John, you spoke about your 17 initiatives with lots going on. What's the one thing you can most keep you back on?
The one thing what?
The question is, what's the one out of the 17 that I care most deeply about? It's a great question. I'd love to see this happen. This is a physical structure, which I think will make a huge difference to the school now, next 3 to 5, and for a long time to come. But I think, maybe I'm going to not sort of highlight any of the one initiatives, because I think the idea of the strategic plan is this, educating for tomorrow, developing global citizens, this kind of excellence of experience for the students. All of these 17 things are really ways to create the environment, whether it's through hiring and retaining and supporting more diverse and quality faculty, whether it's better organizational structure, global curriculum, etc. It's that bottom line, I guess, is what I want to see. I'm not going to be here forever, right? I'm getting old, and Ian's a freshman. What I'd love to see is this, out of the strategic plan, is this continued improvement in terms of the excellence of experience that we're providing for each and every student at Lake Forest Academy, and that we truly are creating the environment to educate for tomorrow and develop those, and be true to the plan, not lose sight of it. Is that fair? would like to see this.
I think it would be interesting to see 4 pillars of global citizenship. And what I mean is a deeper articulation of what does that mean for our students and in our curriculum and among our faculty and in all that we do as an institution. How do we connect, collaborate in a way that creates global citizens?
Yeah, and it's work in progress, as you imagine. Interestingly, the recent trustee weekend, which was not last weekend, the weekend before, on the Friday afternoon, the faculty, staff, and trustees went into small groups and basically talked about this very issue. What is, global citizen? What do we need to do as an educational institution to really develop global citizens? What are the core areas we need to pay attention to? There's some disagreement. Some people were focusing more on the travel opportunities, some were on the exchange opportunities, the diversity of the student body and faculty here, others on the curriculum side. I tend to focus more on this kind of notion of leadership and global leadership and internal self. How do we develop people to think as a global citizen? Pluralism. As you know, I'm a big pluralism guy in this school. But actually get people to think in those terms. So I would say stay tuned as we kind of work our way through that. But that's certainly something which we feel we need to do. We need to define exactly what we're doing and how we're going to measure it.
I think it's a challenge for many educational institutions to try to define that. Many want it, if you can really define it in a way that honors that particular institution. So good luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, what did the students say about that? You said trustees, faculty, staff. What did the students say?
Well, the students, it was interesting. It's coming out of the ISACS accreditation visit, when the team met with students and everything. The students were quite eloquent about this notion of pluralism, about the school is teaching them to put themselves in other students' shoes, to look at it through different lenses and different eyes. They might not be comfortable, but we recognize that we're learning through this experience, whether it be having a roommate from a different country or whether it be in a class and being asked to do things which are different. Some others talked about the opportunities they had been provided for some leadership, whether it's the GYLI program or whether it's some of the other class programs. Like one of the things the visiting team couldn't believe was that our French, the Francophone class and the Spanish class, part of their curriculum is to go away overseas for a week and a half on a service project. That's their final exam. Who does that at high school? So I think we've made some strides. It's just a matter now in how do we pull it together and maybe more coherently and eloquently are able to present it.
All part of the brain?
Yeah. Very much so. Any final? All right.
Was there anything in the ISACS report that they suggest that the school needs to work on?
That school needs to work on? To be honest, most of it was one of those weird reports whereby, the major, I'll put it on here somewhere, the major recommendations were really administrative. Basically, Strudwick, get your act in order here and sort of make sure that the faculty feel a little more happier, and the level of communication. We've transformed a lot in the last decade, and so some of the pieces for the faculty are a little bit frayed. Have we forced it a little bit too much in terms of our expectations on the faculty? And so that was a part of it, which we're aware of. It's just a matter of, it was nice for them to talk about it. But, revise, streamline administrative structures, institutional approach to workload equity, collaborative process to address incomplete and inconsistent faculty adoption of educational technologies. Okay. Documentation. Okay. Efforts at key one, increase the diversity of administration, faculty and staff. Very clear. And then use of benchmark data. They wanted us to do more of this institutional research. So it's kind of a very admin focus. What was interesting was, and I've never seen an ISACS report that does this, generally the number one commendation in all ISACS reports is about faculty. It's kind of the standard, you just do it that way. Having been a team leader, I know that. First thing you do is have faculty, awesome faculty. Their number one was engage respectful, supportive students who take ownership of the positive culture of the student body and embrace opportunities for service. Never seen that, the number one commendation. It makes you feel good. Because it means that what we're being commended for is what we're meant to be. That is the work we're doing with the students. We're student-centered. You know, we say we are. This kind of gave us some really nice feedback that, yeah, you are. You might need to take a bit more time with the backwards. But, yeah, what can you do? I try. And I mean, you know, I don't ignore the faculty. Very much so. I have to live, I'm living with one, so I hear it every day. And those of you know Lauren, know that I hear it every day.
The gala?
Oh, yeah, that was the two things I needed to get back to. One is, and it relates a little bit to my comments regarding the student union and the repurposing of the current student union center, student center for the music. We recognize at the moment that one of the things, kind of areas that we haven't perhaps focused as much attention on the last really 14 years since we opened Cressy, is the arts and the whole, really the Cressy building and the arts program. It's got bigger. It's become more dynamic. It's become stronger. But Cressy, we did increase the capacity. You might remember a few years ago the size so that the student body would come in. But we haven't done anything in terms of the sound in there, the lighting, all things like that. And even probably when we opened Cressy in 2001, one could not call it state-of-the-art sound system or lighting system. It was budget-related, put it that way. Yeah, it was good, it was fine, but as we've improved as a school, it's become more and more apparent for both the arts performances, the choir, orchestra, coax, vox, the plays, the musicals, as well as all school meetings, visiting speakers, etc., that the standard of the sound in Cressy is poor. Projection quality is poor. The lighting is poor, particularly for those of you who have sons and daughters who have been on the stage and know it's challenging. So the Gala project, I'm pleased to say that this year is going to be to raise funds to change that. And it's to raise funds to improve the sound system, basically to really reinvigorate the sound, the projection and the lighting within Cressy so that we can, one, put our kids in a position where they can perform in a much better environment. We can also allows us to invite and expect them to say yes, visiting performers to come to the auditorium because the system will be such that we wouldn't come. Whereas previously sometimes we had to have promised we're going to bring in a different sound system, etc. And also obviously all school meetings, morning meetings, etc. Just the all school, everybody will benefit from it. So the Gala project, yet to be, I think, fully titled, right, Sheila? There are people who are working on it.
It's based on your approval.
Oh, based on my approval, I suppose. But it is going to focus on the improvements, significant improvements for Cressy. Very exciting because we really haven't, as I said, done much for the arts in terms of, because Cressy, when I got here, what discipline suddenly got this brand new building? It was Cressy. Okay, and we don't have to worry about that. We've got to a point where, yes, we do. We need to make sure that what's in there is higher caliber. So that's going to be the Gala project. So, anything else about the Gala project?
No. Next.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my battle.
Okay. Anybody got any questions about the Gala? And certainly that, you'll be seeing more on that. Those of you who have not been, those of you who are freshmen, parents of freshmen, the Gala is a great celebratory event. It's the spring celebration of the school. It's during the spring trustee weekend on that Saturday night.
May 2nd.
May 7th?
2nd.
2nd, sorry, May 2nd. And that Saturday night, We go into the Cressy Auditorium, great celebration of the school, and we basically raise funds for a particular project. This year it will be for the Cressy improvement, so for sound and lighting. So that's very exciting. You should all. It's very good. The other thing I was asked to, I should announce and encourage people, if you haven't already planned to go, the Chicago networking event, which is held at the Northern Trust offices in Chicago on LaSalle. This is Wednesday, February 25th, 11:30, I believe, is the start time. Basically goes till about 1:32. This year it's Shattering the Glass Ceiling. It's an event we do annually with some, normally with LFA speakers. Shattering the Glass Ceiling, Women in Business. Is there another subtitle to it?
No, you got it. You just got backwards. Yeah, women in business.
We're fortunate that an alum, Sally Grease, Sally Proudfoot Grease, Ferry Hall class of 1963, who is runs Grease Financial in Cleveland, female-run, owned financial company. Very, obviously maybe better known in Cleveland, which is in Chicagoland, but incredibly successful and very talented Ferry Hall alum is going to speak. Vicky Medvec, who's a current parent of Barrett Senior here, who's a professor at the Kellogg School, does work, and particularly for women in management business, she's going to speak. And Kate Waddell, who is a past parent, the first and only female board chair of Lake Forest Academy. She's currently also the chair of the Chicago Symphony Campaign and some other areas. She will be the third speaker. So it's an LFA panel. I will be moderating. Right? I'm moderating. I'm allowed to moderate even though I'm a male, so it's good. It should be a great event. And do encourage you to attend that and maybe get others to attend as well, particularly if you're down and work in the Chicago downtown sort of area. So again, February 25th, 11:30 to about 1:30. Any other questions? Any final comments from anybody? Please feel free. This is your chance to ask me a question. I'll ask everybody a question. And you're not allowed to answer this, but others can. What World Cup is starting on Friday? Cricket, thank you. We're pluralistic in this school. We will probably be, last time the Cricket World Cup happened, and my guess is we were the only school that was showing it live on TVs around campus. We did, right? Do you remember? And we will again if I can organise it. So anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And